When the military dictatorship of General Odria came to an end, a new generation of political parties entered the national scene. Acción Popular and Democracia Cristiana took the leading role. The Democracia Cristiana party split, creating the Partido Popular Cristiano, a party of the conservative ruling class. One of the most influential figures of this time was architect Fernando Belaúnde Terry, who was elected president in the elections of 1963. The Second Vatican Council brought many changes within the Church, especially in Latin America. These changes were reflected in the General Episcopal Conference of Medellín in 1968. That conference supported a dynamism of change, to which some national churches, like Peru, were committed. But once again, the pendulum of military coup d'etat cut short the democratic life of the country. In 1968, General Juan Velasco Alvarado assumed power and political parties were forced to live in the shadows. The ecclesial dynamism was also conditioned by the context of that government, which began a series of radical reforms in an effort to respond to the growing demands of the poor, after the failed attempt of reforms by Fernando Belaúnde, who was accused of being corrupt. In their authoritarian manner, the military leaders pushed forward the reforms which the political parties had not succeeded in implementing. The Catholic Church in Peru was strongly committed to the new ideas of the Second Vatican Council and of the documents of Medellín, thus beginning a fruitful theological pastoral model. At this time, with the engagement of the Columbans and others, there arose in Peru the priest movement ONIS, National Office of Social Information. The great theme of this office was how to link the daily life of the Church with the reality of the country. The internal tensions within the Columbans in Peru centred upon divergence of opinion on what should be done by a missionary in this country, which was not exclusive to the Columban community. Such tensions affected the daily life of the Columban community. This tension found an echo in the Columban society around the world. During this period of high social tension, religion was converted into a field of formation of a new and critical awareness, given that both the government and big business were trying to legitimize their power by sheltering under Christian principles. In an article published in 1970, Father Michael Fitzgerald summed up the traditional attitude of the Peruvian Church, with some notable exceptions. The policy was to administer the sacraments and the Mass, and not to denounce publicly the structures of sin. In some cities, and especially in Lima, space was generated for the development of a liberating theology. Some Columbans were ardent supporters of this, others were more reserved. But it is fair to say that for the majority of Columbans in Lima, it has been a gradual shedding of many traditional concepts and an acceptance of the freeing focus of this theology of liberation. Towards the second half of the 1970s, the military government, supported by the old oligarchy, became right-wing after an internal coup. From then on, public protests multiplied, and general strikes obliged the military to return to their barracks. As a missionary society, the Columbans were immersed in a very interesting time of Christian commitment and holiness. They were living and suffering in their own lives the needs of the people, especially the poor. They were supporting, encouraging, and participating in the daily struggle of the people to win a decent, dignified life. Challenged by the poverty of the people, Columbans responded with visible successes. Others saw that education and formation were very important, above all in the sense of the rights of the people. One of the moments in breaking with the past and seeking new forms of solidarity was when the women workers in the factory of Texoro occupied the church of San Martín de Porres. Later on, the workers of Bata Rimac took the churches of Santa Cruz and Santo Domingo on Sunday, 5th of February 1978. The response of the Columban Fathers was to support the women who were on strike and whose demands had not been heeded for a long time. For some Columbans, this was an epoch of learning about the limits of their condition as Christians and as priests. We discovered what it was to be missionary in all of this, allowing these women to express their views and the reason for their protest. The 1980s saw the return to government of the political parties. In 1982, the Columbans accepted 2 parishes outside the jurisdiction of Lima and Callao, both parishes being in the Peruvian Sierra, the mountain area. The first was in the prelature of Tarma, Junín. Fathers Michael Donnelly and Bob O'Rourke were the pioneers there. After many years, and due to the constant threat of death received from the Shining Path terrorists, Michael and Robert returned to Lima. Father Leo Donnelly was appointed to replace them in March 1990. The threats did not cease, and the violence cost more lives, including Sister Irene McCormack of the Congregation of St. Joseph, who was murdered in Watsawasi on the 21st of May 1991. The second parish accepted by the Columbans is located in the prelature of Sicuani, not far from Cusco. The first Columban in Sicuani was Father Paul Prendergast. In 1987 he was joined by Father John Anderson, an associate priest, and in the last few years by Father Donald Hornsey, who has taken on the parish of San Nicolas in the town of Combapata. One significant contribution made by the presence of the Columbans in Sicuani over the past 20 years has been the promotion of the Andean culture. They have compiled and are produced material in Quechua for pastoral and cultural use. This has been a slow but a very valuable process. The missionary work of the Columbans was seriously affected by the terrorist violence of the 1980s. The Columbans even debated the possibility of withdrawing from the country due to the brutality of what was taking place and direct threats to members of the society. Peaceful public rallies, supported by the Columbans among others, were a demonstration of people power over the violent alternative of terrorism. This allowed the Columbans to keep working in Peru.
Ustedes han intentado promovernos y defendernos, y es tiempo que nosotros comencemos a defenderlos como parte del mismo proyecto.